is our legislative recording of Washington County unemployed candidates. And I think John's going to set out the template for what we do and how we do it. The interesting part is that we have some business that we actually do as part of the forum. And at 1 o'clock straight up, the board members, we're going to call a board meeting, and that's going to be establishing some of the timelines for the nomination process. So we actually have to do that. The candidates can keep talking, of course. The camera will keep running. So I'm going to call our distinguished member, John McWilliams, up here, and he'll introduce the candidates, set the ground rules for the process, and good luck to all. And we'll be back here in about an hour to call the meeting. Actually, I think I'm still talking while we're. So I'm going to, basically, we usually do introductions, but our introduction time ran because of the fact that we started the meeting late. So I promise not to do that again.
First time in the history of the forum ever started late. Hello, I'm John McWilliams, and today we are part of the Candidates Forum, week number 7. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present elected officials and challengers for the first, and some people we thought were going to be here, and they might not have been here. And so we have one more thing just to interrupt for just a moment. If you're missing an eye, I have the lens. I have your lens, and I'm giving this back to John Tyner, and he can let you know about it. So give it to John Tyner, please. We do have some elected officials and challengers here today to talk to you and to let you know why they should be the person that you should vote for. Speaking of voting, tomorrow is the last day, 8 p.m. Be sure to get your ballots in. That's really more for the people that are right here today. The people on television probably aren't going to see this until Wednesday. And that's one day too late. So sorry for you, but for everybody here, don't forget 8 p.m. tomorrow evening. Be sure to have your ballots in. So today we have what I'm going to do is I'm going to call each candidate individually. They come from their meal, and they can come up and talk, and then go back to their meal. And during the Q&A, we'll have them come back up again. So so hoping that we have 12 to 14 people here today, but a little shorter of that. That's fine. We'll do very well. So I want to let them know that the candidates will be timed today, and our timer will be Marilyn, and she will have colored cards of green for 2 minutes, yellow for 1 minute, 30 seconds will be orange, and red will be please close. So candidates, please do your best to check out those cards frequently so that you can stop when it's time to stop. Now the candidates that are appearing today, and they appeared last, and the candidates that appeared last week also, they're going to come back again in September, October for the November elections. Right now they do not have a candidate that they're competing with in the primary race, but they will in the general election. So they'll be coming back with their opponent at that time. So be sure and check in. If you're not a member right now, you should become a member, because you can be a member now and ask questions now, and you can also ask questions next year because it covers you for next year as well. And you can do that by talking to our cashier in the back of the room. Now it's time for us to get on with our program. So we'd like to call up our first candidate, and our first candidate today is Jan Verbeek. He's running for House District 17, the challenger for House District 17, and he'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, John. Yes, I'm the candidate for Senate District 17. That is the area Cedarville Elementary School. My kids went to school there. Cedar Park Middle School, Sunset High School, Westview. It includes Beaverton north of
schedule. And this next session, we've got some big tax credits that will be up for review because they're sunsetted, including a rural medical tax credit, which is a very important way to keep doctors in rural areas, the earned income tax credit, and some other, the political tax credit where you can deduct your $50 when you give to a campaign. And so there'll be a really robust discussion on a lot of those. As some of you know, I also am the voice in the legislature for sensible gun laws, and I will be reintroducing my bill to allow all school districts to keep all guns out of schools. Right now, there's an exemption for concealed handgun license holders, and I believe, and many of my colleagues believe, that at a minimum, districts should be able to decide for themselves. So I'm very pleased to represent you. Just very quickly, is there anybody here from Tigard? Yay! That's the part of Washington County I represent. And thank you very much for having me. And if we have a chance for questions, I look forward to yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny. And now we'll move to the House District races for House District 26. Democratic position will be Win Wakala.
And he pronounced that correctly, so I'm finished. My dad said he was going to have 3 kids and name them Win, Place, and Show. So, but he was not a problem gambler, so don't worry about that. The district I'm running for covers Wilsonville, King City, Bull Mountain, where I live, Sherwood, and part of Hillsboro. And I'm running for, because I'm tired of everyday people being put in the back seat. We need to get back into the driver's seat. Some of the things I'm concerned about include making sure government works for us. That includes things like, I'm used to looking things at a holistic approach, like child abuse. What comes from child abuse? Domestic violence, poor school attendance and ability to do well in school, bullying, drug and alcohol problems. There are so many things that result just from, and even including ending up in prisons. Something like child abuse affects a lot of things. So I need to make sure that we look at things on a holistic approach and not piecemeal. I worked for the city of Portland for about 8.5 years as a principal accountant. I worked for Washington County Sheriff's Office. I worked for Portland Police. I was a financial planner. So my background is mostly in accounting type areas. My dad was on city council in my little town of Powers and was head of Alliance and the Elks and the Masons. So I have a long history of doing community service. Some of the other things I'm concerned about include making sure, like I said, that we're put back in the driver's seat. And I don't think taxation is always fair. I don't think it's right that someone who stands on their feet for 8 hours a day is taxed at almost twice the rate as someone who leans back in their big overstuffed chair, gets on the phone for 5 minutes with their stockbroker. That disgusts me. I know in Oregon, at least we have our laws separated from the federal law that way, but there are people in this state who are trying to link us back to the federal law, and I don't think that's right. So there's also things like Jenny was talking about. They're called tax expenditures, which are the credits. And it turns out a majority of the tax expenditures are used by the most wealthy. So that's not fair either. One of the other things I'm concerned about, I grew up in the 60s. I know you can't tell because I look so young. But I'm one of those people that says, keep your laws off my body. I firmly believe that. And I'm going to stand for women's rights. I'm used to working with all sorts of people. If you've heard of my name, it's because I've been very active in fighting human trafficking for the last almost 4 years. So I do it as a volunteer. I work with various churches. I was on the Billy Graham Crusade board for singles. And I'm used to working with everybody, and I love everybody. And I just want to continue fighting for all of us down in Salem. So please vote for me, and we will be helping all the vulnerable people and all of us regular, everyday people. Thank you.
you to the Washington County Public Affairs. I'm very excited to be here. I'm an immigrant from a small village in Mexico. I came here when I was 14 years old. Didn't speak a word of English. Still a struggle, but I can make it. My family and I came here for one reason, and that's the opportunity. And this country, like any other country in this state, has been a true blessing for us. We have gone from working in the fields to starting a small business by myself and a lawnmower and a pickup truck, build it up to almost 50 people and almost $8 million in revenues per year. Plus now, today, we're doing mainly soil stability. We switched over to that kind of work. Now, all of those blessings that I got, I started to get concerned because I don't see them anymore. It is very difficult in this state for the little guy to have a chance again like I did. It is to the point where the way I started with a lawnmower and a pickup truck, if any one of you decided to do that, you couldn't do it. Or especially the guys that want to do that, or ladies. You need a 2-year college degree, or you have to convince your previous employer to go and co-sign for you so that the state can allow you to take 7 tests to plant some bushes in the ground. We're getting really, really ridiculous here. And the very people that these folks in Salem are claiming to be helping are the very people that they're hurting the most, is the people on the bottom. The big guys, the corporations, they don't need any help. I mean, they got plenty of help in there. They got plenty of lobbyists to help them. It's the little guys that need government to get out of the way. And we need to go in there with a different mindset too. My little girl, Savannah, said to me, Dad, when she heard me talk about that, he says, sounds like we're going from being Americans to Americans if we continue in this path. We can't do that. We are Americans, so it means we can do just about anything, but we can't have people putting obstacles in us. So I ask that you vote for me for state rep for the Aloha and Beaverton area, which is basically District 28. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Now for House District 30. Our next speaker will be Sean Lindsay. So Republican coming back, he's a representative, he's coming back, and he's been the co-chair of redistricting. I think he's been working really hard, so he's got some good things to tell you. So, Sean.
Thank you, John. Thanks for introducing me. It's great to be with you this afternoon. Senator Burdick, I'm very disappointed that you did not take advantage of this microphone and do a little karaoke for us. You see, Senator Burdick and I, we spent a little time over in China trying to get some business over here, and we spent a fun evening doing some karaoke together. So let's make sure she doesn't leave without picking up this microphone and showing us some of her other skills. My name is Sean Lindsay. I'm running for re-election in this district right here, House District 30, where we sit. And I'm a father of 3 girls, 7, 5-year-old, and 2-year-old. I've been married to my college sweetheart for 15 years now, if you can believe it. Now let me tell you how I campaigned. When I found out who my opponent was going to be, I could have easily sent out my operatives to go do some opposition research on her, right? I said, no, let's do things differently this time. A little bit differently. So you know what I did? Get ready. It might blow your mind a little bit. I actually called her up. I said, hey, would you like to come out to Starbucks with me? And she graciously accepted it, and the two of us sat down and had a heart-to-heart for a good hour and got to know each other. Got to know each other's families, and I'm trusting that because we did that, because I took the initiative to invite her out and get to know each other, that we learned of each other, and that it will hopefully prevent us from doing anything embarrassing or doing anything unbecoming, and more importantly, that it will lift the substance of this debate, of this election, and make sure that we truly address the issues instead of the personalities and the frequent mudslinging that we see. Just as Manuel Castaneda just addressed the actual issues, I trust that this election will do that. Now, I want to share something with you that will surprise you. Oregon's general and lottery budget over the past, well, going back to 1991, was $6 billion. Today, that budget cycle is $14 billion. So just in those 20 years, the budget is up 163% in just those last 20 years. But during the exact same period, Oregon's median income rose only 22% instead of the 163%. And the state's population is only up by 31.7%. Do you get it? We're spending more than we're taking in. And the number one way to help fix this is we don't need more taxes, we need more taxpayers. And if you want to have a healthy public sector, you have to have a healthy private sector. I hope that you'll support me and my colleagues in bringing past this healthy private sector. Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'll be looking forward to answering some of your questions later.
Now we'll have the representative from House District 32. Ms. Deborah Boone, Democrat, looking forward to maybe regaining another term. We'll see. So let's have a big hand for Debbie Boone.
Yes, I got so excited I knocked my chair over. Thank you to Washington County Public Affairs Forum for making this opportunity available for candidates and other members to see us up close and personal. And I always like going near the end of things because people before me tee things up, which some of the members or some of the candidates have already done. And I'd like to take what Representative Lindsay just said a step further, and instead of just getting more taxpayers, I would love to see Oregon have the lowest number of people in the so-called system, starting with our children, and who work their way up because they have been abused or neglected or for whatever reasons. So we have healthy families, so that we have educated children, our people have what they need, our children have what they need before they get into trouble. And I say this to people who work for Department of Human Services often. I said, you know what I'd like to do is I'd like to see you out of a job. And they usually say, yeah, me too. So I think that that's one of the ways that this state can spend less money and on services like that and spend more on services that we really would like to have, and that would be education and our health care. And oh, that reminds me, I just figured it out last night and it was a little depressing. I've been in the child abuse prevention field now in my other life for 33 years. I started when my mom died. She says, go do something good, go do something that will help the kids. And so I joined with our former Governor McCall's sister, Jean Babson, and was one of the charter members of the Oregon chapter for the National Committee for Prevention of Child Abuse. And while we've seen ups and downs in that sector, I'm much more hopeful because what the hardest job we had at the time was proving that prevention works. And that segues into our healthcare system too. It's prevention works. People take more responsibility for their lifestyles and their chosen health, their personal health issues. Will spend less on that. They'll be healthier. They'll live longer. And wow, I have a whole minute left. But and then my I know you're trying to find my point here, and there is a point. When I started out in my first job as county commissioner in Clatsop County, we were in dire straits financially too, and so it just became imminent for us to either find more money, spend less money, all that combinations of, and it all came back to that. It came back to families that were in distress, and we needed to have jobs, and that's one of my top priorities for this position, and jobs that we can kill two birds with one stone, jobs in the energy sector, in healthcare, and in education. So I hope that it should be coming soon. And I appreciate your support. This is my 5th term. I've been there for a long time before, to 18 years before. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. I really appreciate you being here. She has some ways to get here, so thank you for traveling. So I did make a little mistake here. I actually skipped one of our candidates as they come in. So House District 27. I'd like to introduce to you Burton Keeper. Burton.
Thank you. I want to thank the Public Affairs Forum for giving me this opportunity to present myself. And I'm running. It was a spur-of-the-moment decision. Nobody else had registered to run against the incumbent in my district. And 6 days before filing time, I registered. I filed. And that gives the Republicans somebody to vote for. And after tomorrow, I hope to give everybody in my district somebody to vote for, a choice. I'm running on 3 main issues. One is to make Oregon more business friendly. And the way I'd like to do that is to consider right to work legislation. I don't think it should be incumbent upon a job applicant to join the union in order to get the job. And all the state, federal, county, local governmental employees are generally union members. Secondly, I'd like to see election reform. I want to make sure that there are no snags in our system. There can't be any fraud, and we can't afford it. We don't have huge volumes of people in different places. We have little volumes, and a few votes make
Schuler once said, we never suffer from a money problem, we always suffer from an idea problem. And my goal is to bring fresh new insights and ideas and new energy to the state legislature, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to chat with you more about them. I appreciate your support. Thank you.
So Dan, if you'd like, you just stay up here. We're going to do some Q&A right now. Anybody here that I missed, just want to make sure that we did cover everything. And so I have all the candidates come back up, candidates and elected officials come back up and take a chair up here. And there's some signs, but you can ignore the signs and you can find a place to sit down. And then we'll do some Q&A with our members here. So we'll just start. So for our Q, we'll just start off this side and we'll just go down to this end. And then next second question, we'll go next, and over here, and then we'll start with the last one.
Forrest Hill, Forum member. Several of you have mentioned tax reform. My question is, for any of you, what is the difference between a tax credit, a tax expenditure, and an out-and-out bribe? We tax credit to somebody who's willing and able on their own to establish a business or expand. So why do we bribe them for that issue?
Well, apparently we're not playing softball today. No, that's a great question. I think, I don't know if you saw in the Beaverton Times, we were just talking about the enterprise zone, tax credits that Beaverton's trying to take advantage of to grow some of the businesses and give them an incentive to come to our area, or to obviously to get some of these small business folks going. Obviously, capitalism is all about incentives and getting people to invest in certain areas. At least from my perspective, I think that the enterprise zone option has been working for the specific area, and it's worked out in Hillsborough to bring other companies to our area. When you have the regulatory environment that we currently have, that it doesn't necessarily get people excited to coming to Oregon. You got to incentivize them some way. I think the enterprise zone option is a great way to do that and get some more taxpayers in our community.
I actually worked for the city of Portland. I was a principal accountant, and I helped put together the enterprise zone for Martin Luther King Boulevard. Enterprise zones, to me, make sense for areas that have plight. Otherwise, I look at like what's going on out here, and we've offered enterprise zones or reduced taxes to people like Intel and Nike and people like that. And that just means the tax burden has shifted to us. And I don't think it's right to shift to the average American, the average citizen. I think they should pay their fair share too. I can see if it's an area that has plight, like Martin Luther King Boulevard used to. And that's how I feel about it.
We're heading down the line. I suppose if you choose to answer another question, you can, but the next person down, seat-wise, could do it. I'd like to by Senator House. Next person wants to speak to it, can speak to it.
Great. Thank you for your question. There are two ways for the government to give money back to the people. First of all, let's remember that the money comes from the people. Two ways to give it back. One is a tax credit, or the other is a tax return. I guess there's a third way, and that's to spend the money, right? So that's just kind of way of context. The second thing is, why do we have tax expenditures? Why do we have tax credits? The reality is that we live in a system where we have to compete with other states and other countries that do it as well. Okay, there's a reason why my clients, I'm an attorney down at Portland, there's a reason why some clients that are coming in, for example, California, some clients came in and said they're interested in buying a company here in Oregon. One of their question was, what's your capital gains or your investment income tax here? I told them, by the way, it's the second highest in the entire United States of America. And those people that were considering investing in Oregon said, whoa, wait a minute, that's too high. Why would we come here instead? And I'll close up now. The second thing is I want to address this. There are two types of income, or taxes. There's ordinary income tax and there's investment income tax. And we provide incentives by having a lower investment income tax to incentivize people to make investments. We want people to save money and not to spend it all. We give them an incentive by having an investment income tax lower. If we want to discourage investment and to freeze up money, then we ought to raise it. And that's exactly what Oregon's done. We have the highest or the second highest in all the United States. And then finally, I'd just like to say that, okay, I'd like to come back to this if we had more time. Thank you.
Well, I better speak to this since I'm chair of the committee that has jurisdiction over tax credits. Tax credits have a place. It's not as simple. They're either good or bad. They have to be monitored very carefully. We have two examples that have gotten a lot of press in recent years. One is the business energy tax credit that was encouraging renewable energy, and it was really largely responsible for the growth of the wind industry. Unfortunately, we didn't keep an eye on that tax credit, and so we ended up spending millions and millions of dollars subsidizing things that actually would have taken place anyway. So we cut back on those. The other example is the film and video tax credit. It's a relatively small tax credit. It totals $6.5 million a year. Before the tax credit, our film industry put $5 million into the economy. After the tax credit, it's well over $100 million in the economy. This is one that works. So we are watching them very carefully. We sunset them every 6 years, and hopefully that kind of reform will help us tailor them to the ones that work.
I'm personally opposed. I just think you have to be very careful with tax credits. Tax credits are extremely expensive and hard on the budget, and we have to be very careful who we give it to. It's a difference between giving a tax credit maybe to a Nike or an Intel, which are huge tax collectors. The payroll tax they collect for our economy is humongous, but that's different than a tax credit to a solar company, for instance, that could not exist on its own merits, and the only reason they're in business is because of these tax credits. So tax reform is extremely complicated, but tax credits will be, I'll be looking at that very closely.
Bill, do you have a question? All right, let's go. Go right there.
Chris Leslie, foreign member. To me, tax credits and bribes, as my friend refers to them, is just nothing more but socialism and business being run by the government. Have you ever, and can you give me an example of a socialist government that works without being broke?
So I've been asked this question before, and my answer was, okay, if something's working, if that motivates people to invest, then why don't you do it statewide and have everybody compete on a playing field? I think that would make it much better.
I guess we're just taking turns. I was going to say the problem I have with taxing people at different rates for people who are doing stocks, I know they say it's an incentive to invest in the company, but my point of view is if these people go ahead and invest in the company, but they're not supplying a good product, and none of us can afford to buy it, they're going to have to end up laying off the employees eventually anyway. So I don't think... Yeah, they'll go out of business. So why give these people an incentive just to buy stocks? That to me makes absolutely no sense. Also, with City Club of Portland, I recently had I'm active in the City Club, and I just joined you guys. Anyway, I had Steve Robinson come and speak. He's with Decision Matrix, and he has a whole presentation tax expenditures. And if you'd like to have him try to come here, maybe I can arrange that.
I think a good example also is Obamacare, what we are faced with. We are promised better care and it's going to be less expensive. Well, that's only because if that's in the tax, because of tax credits. Where is that money coming from? So this is because the people in Washington D.C. don't have the courage to make a tough decision. Now we have to make the decision at the state level. Now I ask you, if you have to make a choice, if the government gets in between you and your physician, and they have to make a choice whether to provide care or, and if there's no money, they may cut services. That's the discussion we should have. To talk about taxation is very boring, but it's extremely important.
Fred Anderson, forum member. We have two measures in Oregon, Measure 11 and I believe 57, which set mandatory limits on, or mandatory sentences for certain types of crime. It basically takes the discretion out of the judge's hands in sentencing people for these types of crimes. This has had the effect of rather substantially increasing our prison population at a cost of $30,000 to $40,000 per prisoner per year. And how do all of you feel about mandatory sentencing and taking the discretion out of the judge's hands in sentencing?
I think for the majority of crime, the mandatory sentence is appropriate. One reason is because the prisoner is doing the time, having done the crime, he's going to have that much time to rehabilitate himself, to take advantage of the programs that are offered in our penal system. I had another point that I've forgotten. Oh, no? Sorry. Sorry.
More than 95% of the prisoners in our system, regardless of how they got there, are back in society. The mandatory sentences are a blunt instrument. They provide protection during the time of that sentence, and then after that, the person comes out of prison. They don't have the proper programs to get them reintegrated into the community. They haven't had the drug and alcohol treatment because we're spending all this time warehousing people at $35,000 to $40,000 a year. I opposed Measure 11. I did vote for Measure 57 because it was the less extreme of two measures on the ballot that year. But we need to be smarter on crime. This country has 5% of the population of the world, and we have 25% of the incarcerated people in the world. That's a crazy statistic. We need to go back to the front end, fund pre-education, preschool education, deal with at-risk children, provide a better educational opportunity, and keep people out of prison.
So first of all, I'd like to just address your premise that these take away the discretion of the judges. It does not. It limits their discretion, but it does not take away the discretion of judges. And the purpose of that is so that there might not be some rogue judge out there that doesn't give any proper punishment or unreasonable amount of punishment there. Second thing is that have you talked to the district attorneys? Have you talked to the sheriffs? These are the people that enforce the laws and enforce the sentences. And one statistic that has not been mentioned here is that Oregon is at its all-time low of criminal behavior over the past, I think it's the last 10 years. We're at an all-time low of criminal behavior. Now, can we do better? Oh, yeah. 95, like as Senator Burdick said, 95% come back. But there are also costs for recidivism that we are saving by housing or criminalizing these behaviors. There is less repeat crime, there are less victims, less recidivism, and those all bear a cost.
I like to talk, you can tell. City Club of Portland, I was on a committee. In fact, I co-chaired the Government and Public Safety Issue Committee. And in the 80s, I actually was part of the Public Law and Public Safety Committee. civicism. And it turns out, I think Measure 11 should be struck down. I think judges do need more discretion. And if you can help the people, the first-time offenders, if you can help them, put the money there, instead of housing them, it turns out a vast majority of the money in the system goes towards housing long-term people. And there are very few people that actually probably could not be rehabilitated, and those people need to stay there. But the rest of them, we need to get them back out into the public, give them the drug and whatever type of other treatment they need. And also we need to be careful when people first come back. We need to make sure that they can get jobs, they can get housing. And I'm very thankful for the human trafficking law that just went through that takes prostitution off their record if they're under 18, so they can get a job and get a place to live.
And I'll be brief. I just want to weigh in on this. I agree with everything Senator Burdick just said, but one of the, again, prevention of child abuse and neglect will help stop the increase in numbers that go through the judicial system. And then once they are there, it will also help prevent some drug and alcoholism. And you know, if you take all the statistics, and I can't even remember all of them, but after all those years of child abuse prevention, it's pretty clear that most of the people in the big house are victims of child abuse and neglect at some point in their life. Thank you.
I think the budget, the public safety on the Oregon budget is a significant amount, but compared with healthcare and education, it's not that. I'm not so concerned about it. I think it's very important to have prisoners behind bars, and there is the statistics show that after these measures passed, there was a sharp reduction of violent crime in America. So I think that's great. The only thing that I like to focus on is, do we have the right people behind bars? There are 100,000 American girls underage kidnapped every year, sold into prostitution. We should go hard after those and with minimum sentences.
Harry Bodine, Forum member. PERS, Public Employment Retirement System, causing enormous difficulties right now with increases year after year. And I think about, for example, 300 and some odd Beaverton School District teachers, employees laid off this year. A number of those people will still be working next fall if not for the huge increases in PERS, unfunded liabilities going forward.
Thank you for the opportunity. You know, someone in my position, we can't figure out how that can be right. After I've seen people retiring at 52 years of age with more than what they were making before. Are you kidding me? Can we really afford that? That's not right. That's robbing from our future generation and from the people that are producing. I don't think anybody minds having a reasonable amount of pension for someone, but when we read about these outrageous amounts, you know, over $100,000, some of these public servants, that's not why we go into government. Thank you.
One quick point on, I do believe that legislators should be participating in the PERS process if they're financially benefiting from it. I mean, I think that we got to have some fair and balanced folks that are voting up and down on these issues. I think the cost of living increments, you know, need to be looked at, and we're obviously our state's going to go bankrupt if we don't do something dramatic. We can't do anything with Tier 1, and mildly with Tiers or for Tier 1 and Tier 2, but we can look at reforms moving forward.
Guess who? I'm retired PERS. I had money in the system for 30 years when I retired. I make 60% of what I made at my last job. I had people I knew who left government and got paid substantially more when they went to the private sector. I felt my whole life I wanted to be a public servant, I just felt that I wanted to help other people, work for the community, and that was, I knew I would eventually, at least my retirement would be there. I would be satisfied there because I was not buying the big, huge houses in my 30s. I knew when I retired I'd be okay.
So thank you for your public service. Seriously, the concern is, and I want you to have that retirement waiting for you. I want you to have that in 10, 20 years. Our concern is that it may not be there, and it needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed or it will not be there. So I hope that you fully understand that the solutions that we bring to the table, such as getting legislators out of PERS because there's an inherent conflict of interest, I hope that you understand that the solutions of adding a tier 4 to remove all future public employees, put them in a 401k system. I hope that you understand that those solutions are there or proposed, and we're willing to work on them to help save those good public servants that have put so much time and so much effort in their own investments so that those benefits are there when they need them.
Dolores Raymond, forum member. The question of same-sex marriage has been very prominent in the news recently. Both our president and vice presidents are okay with that. Oregon's answer to that several years back was, I think, kind of a weak compromise, domestic partnership. And since then, Measure 36 passed, which limits marriage to one man and one woman. I think that is gross, unfair, shouldn't be that way. Sexual orientation is a matter of birth. It is not a lifestyle choice. I happen to have a gay nephew who came to visit recently. His partner came with him. I think they're very happy together, and they are just as much entitled to happiness as a man and a woman. So I would like to hear how our candidates feel about that issue.
I went to a hearing when I first got elected in 1997 and testified in favor of gay marriage. And that is where I stand on the issue and always have. I also, it was my committee that produced these compromise legislation, which is all we could do given the constitutional amendment that had passed. We passed 2 bills that session. It was 2007. One prohibits, adds gays, lesbian, and transsexuals and bisexuals to the anti-discrimination laws in lodging and employment, and the other one allows for domestic partnerships. That's as far as we can go until we repeal measures 36 that passed. A lot of this is generational. A lot of people in my age group have a lot of difficulty with gay marriage. The younger people do not. We are evolving as a society, and I look forward to the completion of the evolution, which our president, I'm very proud to say, has already completed.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate you and thank you for your civil question. I think often that this issue has been very bifurcated, and both sides have been saying very hurtful things when it's such a tender subject. Secondly, I'd like to say that it's almost inherently unrelated to our positions here. I think it's somewhat irrelevant. I don't think that any of us will be voting on too much of those things that will be decided by the people as it was decided in 2004. It's not going to be decided by the legislature. Third, we define marriage, and we define it day in and day out. We say that here in Oregon, that 14-year-olds can't get married. We say here in Oregon that cousins can't get married. We define marriage day in and day out. We say that 2 men and 2 women can't get married. Polygamous relationships cannot get married. I stand in favor of protecting marriage as it is, between 1 man and 1 woman, and recognizing the inherent traits that other people bring, and to celebrate diversity by celebrating each other's opinions. But for now, I stand with every other state that has voted on this that says we should protect marriage between 1 man and 1 woman.
I forgot to mention that Basic Rights Oregon will be bringing this issue to the legislature again.
Well, thanks answer the question, Dolores, and it's probably, just hearing that too, I had just heard that this week too. But I represent about 64,000 constituents, and all permutations and in between, people of different beliefs, people of different stripes,